Hi everyone, this is Gleb Bakhmatov, and recently I've written a new test. I want to complete the second item and confirm that the other two items are not complete. The test seems to be passing. I already had a previous test there. So this is my test. It works locally. What happens when you run it on CI? Can we confirm that this test is really reliable? To confirm that the test is reliable, I would like to run it many times in a row. Because I'm using cypress-grep in my test, I can run this test multiple times right from the command line. So the name of the test has, I can select the whole name and I can execute cypress-grep, the name of the test. I don't have any tags, so I'm setting null and let's say 10 times. So cypress-grep is a method added on a global Cypress object by the cypress-grep plugin. And notice that the other test that I had in that spec file is pending. It's skipped. And then it executes the same test 10 times in a row, and it seems to be working. What happens if I want to run this from command line and I want to grab this test? So run it by itself and don't run any other test and run it, let's say, 10 times in a row. The way to do this from command line is, and let me just clear this, is when you do the Cypress run, is to pass the grep and the burn parameters. If we look at documentation for cypress-grep plugin, if you pass grep, that will be the text it searches for in a test title. So in this case, my title has the word complete, and if you want to pass a title with multiple words, right, so second. So this will execute that particular test, skipping everything else. But if you want to also pass the number of times to run it, you also want to pass Cypress burn equals and the number, say 5. Cypress takes every environment variable that starts with all caps Cypress as a variable it captures and puts it into Cypress environment object, and you can access those through. This is what plugin uses. So it says if there is grep, then I want to grep for the test. So if we want to run it, we can do it like this locally. And in this case, the plugin will grab this environment variable complete second by title, grab the burn, and it's equivalent to what we've done from the DevTools console. Notice the second test pending, and we executed the test 5 times. And the last part of this equation is that you want to be grepping and burning test on demand. Right now, I'm running the test on Circle. So I have a pipeline set up and it runs the test on pull request and on commit. So if we, for example, are in doubt that this test works, can we run it on Circle and burn it the same way we've done locally? So yes, but it's a little bit more complicated. So I have my config file. It has Cypress orb, but it's imports, right? Which allows us to execute in our workflow the job called Cypress run. So this job comes from the orb and Cypress. And here I'm doing all the regular thing. I'm setting the base URL as a config. I'm not storing artifacts, but I'm recording the results on Cypress dashboard. I'm using the pipeline parameter test branch as a tag. So these pipeline parameters, where are they coming from? They're defined right here. So I can run this pipeline and I pass test branch. And when we check out code, then we can switch to that branch so that we can prepare the tests for that particular feature. And also, if our deploy is a preview deploy, then we're passing the test URL as a pipeline parameter. By default, we're just using the main production URL. So here's what we can do. Imagine we will pass 2 additional pipeline parameters right here. So we will pass a parameter, grep, by default it's empty string, and parameter burn, by default it's 1. So by default there is nothing to select, nothing to run multiple times. In our job, we have to export these values as environment variable. In this case, it will be cypress-grep and cypress-burn. So you can follow the documentation in Circle how to export variables because it's not easy to actually set them up right here in a job in a workflow. So here's how we do it. Notice after we checking out the code, we running additional commands before we running the tests. So right here, we can add one more command and I'm giving it a name. And what we are doing here, we're exporting and setting the environment name cypress-grep, just like we've done locally right here. We are setting it here, and we're giving the value, and it's running by quotes, to the pipeline parameter grep that we define here. Similarly, we export cypress-burn, and we give a value pipeline parameters burn. This will be substituted as a text substitution by Circle. So it's literally will put the number, let's say 1 by default. We're writing it in a bash environment file so that when Cypress runs its commands, right, when it actually does those things after checking out and runs the test, it will have those environment variables set already. So let's see how it works. I already have a pipeline ready. So let's say we want to grep, and the name of a test, well, in this case, we can say, I don't know, it's a second item. And we'll add another parameter, burn, how many times you want to run it. It's an integer. And let's say 7 times. Okay, and we'll run the parameter, run the pipeline with parameters, sorry. And notice this starts running. Now there is nothing to wait for because it has been deployed. In the info job, I'm already printing every pipeline parameter. So notice the default values, but these are the values we actually provided when we launched this pipeline. And now let's look at the test when they start. Okay. Notice we're exporting those values into the bash environment file so that the other steps actually use it. And now the run Cypress tests. Notice it uses the bash command, forms it automatically, and the values are actually passed correctly. So let's see. Yes, the first test is pending, and the rest, the test we're interested in, run 7 times in a row. Now this has been recorded on the Cypress dashboard. So let's open the dashboard. Now this is still waiting for maybe our other job, so it's finishing up, but we can see that there are 8 test results, 1 pending, and 7 times our test we were grepping for.